Bhutan is a tiny country, lying in the mountains and valleys of the mighty Himalayas. A country of extraordinary beauty, steeped with myth and legend, seemingly untouched by the passing of time. It is known to the few visitors from the outside world as the last Shangri-La, and to its people as Drukgyal, land of the Thunder Dragon. Bhutan had successfully sold an image of itself to the outside world as a Buddhist Eden, the land of happiness. But inside, it was facing an identity crisis about what it meant to be Bhutanese.
Bhutan is an ethnically very mixed country. There are three main ethnic groups and lots of minor ones. No one group has an absolute majority in terms of their numbers. The Ngalong are the people of the north and west of the country, from which the king comes and most of the ruling class. The population along the southern border of the country is mainly of Nepali origin and are relatively recent immigrants. Probably came to the country between 1865 and 1930.
This ethnic mix had not been seen as a problem until a large population of Nepali speakers from the south started to gain influence throughout Bhutanese society. In 1991, the king and his ministers immediately moved to try to preserve the specific culture and identity of Bhutan.
And suddenly, almost very quickly, over about a year, a whole lot of legislation came in about marriage, citizenship, land ownership, and then the wearing of Bhutanese national costume in official places. In 1988, the government of Bhutan conducted a census across the whole of the south, and a large number of people who had considered themselves to be full citizens with citizenship cards and so on became less secure in their minds about their right to remain in Bhutan.
And these directly targeted the Nepali speakers in the south.
When this political tension erupted, large numbers of them were afraid, either because a member of their family had been arrested and they didn't know where they were, or because they were being harassed by security forces from the Bhutanese government who was telling them leave the country, and also because they were coming under severe pressure from their own kind to take part in demonstrations and activities against the Bhutanese government, and were being coerced with threats and, with violence from there. So people were caught in the middle.
In the 3 years after the census, the southern Nepalese began to flee to refugee camps in Nepal.
1991, 1992, and at the peak of this migration, around 600 people a day arrived in refugee camps in Nepal.
They brought with them their tales of torture, rape and violence by the Bhutanese authorities. At first, the international community gave little credence to these horror stories. They could not believe that Bhutan, the last Shangri-La, was capable of such violence. However, the sheer number of refugees involved meant the evidence was compelling. 1/6 of the population had been forced out of the country and into these camps. The world could no longer ignore these human rights abuses. The potential consequences for the Dragon Throne couldn't have been more serious. How was the king going to deflect this outrage and regain the support of the international community that his tiny kingdom relied on? Like his forefathers before him, he faced a grave crisis, and like them, he played a political masterstroke. But the kingdom of Thunder Dragon has found itself buffeted by many challenges in its 400-year history. Threats from its giant neighbors and internal division being just a few. In the last decades of the 20th century, it wasn't war or religion that shook Bhutan, but ethnic politics and global opinion. The enforced removal of the Nepali-speaking population had shocked the world. The king faced international condemnation. It also shone the spotlight on Bhutan's system of royal rule. Every day he sat on the throne as an absolute monarch, the Bhutan brand was being further damaged. Within the space of a couple of years, the fourth king had brought in a new constitution, set in motion the first ever elections, and stepped down from his throne. It seemed his legacy to his son, Jigme Kesa Namgyal Wangchuk, was a new Bhutan for a new era. And as the former king placed the raven crown on his son's head, the whole country looked to the future. The king will no doubt face both old and new challenges. His ability to handle them will contribute to the success of the monarchy.
I want you to love your country in the most intelligent manner. You must always keep in mind that it is one thing to love your country, it is quite another to love it intelligently.